Hey guys, it's Clinton and Adam from Two Bold Chefs.
Hey guys.
We are making Roti Canai. Hey guys, it's Clinton and Adam from Two Bold Chefs. So, we're here for another video. So, I was in Malaysia a few weeks ago, which is the most incredible place in the world for food, I have to say. And over in Malaysia, anytime you go to a street side restaurant, whatever, you can always get this like a flatbread that they make called Roti Canai, and it's this fluffy, beautiful layers of pastry. And I think I ate it every single day, probably twice a day for about 2 weeks. So I figured I've been trying to recreate it a couple of times, and we might have a go at it now. I'll teach you how to do it.
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay.
Righto.
All right, so we might just go through the ingredients. So we've got 280 grams of just plain flour. We've got a mix of half a tablespoon of salt and half a tablespoon of sugar. A stack of vegetable oil. You can use any other oil, but vegetable I find kind of works best for this. And then we've also just got about 200 mils of warm water. And the reason we use warm water is that we just want to mix this salt and sugar through it. We want to make sure it kind of mixes without sitting all on the bottom. So we may as well dive in. Let's combine the sugar and salt into the water. And we'll give that a stir. And then I'll get you to add about half of that into the flour. And just slowly start mixing it, kneading it together. And then once you get most of that incorporated, we'll put the rest in. And as soon as you start to feel like you've got a bit of a smooth dough, that's when you'll stop.
Well, I might give it a little bit of a knead on the bench.
Okay. All right, so now that we've got that nice kind of, smooth dough ball, what we're gonna do is gonna oil a bowl up, and you can do this in a separate bowl, or if you've cleaned out the one you were mixing in, you can just pour some of that oil in, try and get a nice coating. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna break that dough into probably about 5 or 6 equal portions.
Okay.
And we put them in this oiled up bowl, cover it in a bit more oil just to stop it from drying out, because we're gonna put it in the refrigerator for a while. You don't have to let it rest a long time. I've rested it for 20 minutes and I've rested it overnight. There's not a great deal of difference in it. I find it's maybe a little bit easier to work if you've left it overnight, but you don't have to stress. Whatever time you've got available, really.
Righto.
And when you drop the balls in, try and just, roll them around a bit, get a little bit of that good coating of oil on, and you just squash it down a little bit. So you end up with this kind of nice little patty shape. Well done. It's the most athletic I've ever seen you. Now you're showing off. Don't try that at home, guys. Once you've got those all right to go, what you're going to do is just cover them with a bit of cling wrap or glad wrap, whatever you want to call it, and just chuck that in the fridge for about however long you want. 24 hours ideally, but yeah, don't stress. So we've had our dough resting in the fridge for about 4 hours. And now this is the stage of the recipe which, if you're gonna get turned off at all, it's this. It's a bit of cleanup involved afterwards. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna oil up our bench because you need a really nice big space to work in. And we're gonna try and flatten out our dough balls into a really nice thin pastry. And there's a bit of a flipping technique that we'll use that I'm not particularly good at, and you watch people in Malaysia do it in the restaurants, and it's absolutely beautiful. And they do it it's like one of those YouTube speed work videos. But we'll give it a good crack. I'll make Adam do it if I'm struggling too badly, and we'll see how we go.
Righto.
Okay, so
Oil.
take the rest of your oil, and you can just keep using more as you need it, and spread it out on your bench till you get a nice smooth layer. You probably want it about, about 2 feet across or so.
And is this just to stop it sticking to the surface?
It
or
is,
there more to
yeah.
it?
No, so it's just going to stop it sticking, because as the dough gets really fine, if you
Yeah.
don't have this oil, you'll find it's an absolute nightmare to work.
Fantastic.
Okay, so grab our first piece of dough. These are still nice and oily. You want your hands nice and oily too, because for the exact same purpose, you don't want things sticking.
Like a good massage.
All right, so what we're gonna do is take this piece of dough, slap it out on our oiled bench, and we're gonna use our palm just to try and flatten it out into a slightly more rounded and even shape.
Yeah.
So I just use my fingers to get it started. It's still a bit cold, so it might be a little stiff, but it'll warm up quite quickly with your hands. No pun intended. And I'm just gonna start flattening this out.
Yeah.
So you want to get it out to about this sort of shape. And then this is when you incorporate that really cool slapping technique that I can't do properly. So what you do is we're going to lift up the dough a bit. You want to put your right hand or your dominant hand under the dough and your other hand next to it on top of the dough. So you're kind of alternating in between. And you're going to pick it up and you're going to swing it out and slap it down on the bench. And if you do it with enough force, it kind of spreads the dough out, incorporates a bit of air, and gives it a much nicer spread. And you just do it a few times until you've got it out to the thickness that you want. Once we get it out to that kind of nice thickness that we want, all we're going to do is we're going to let it rest for a little bit longer. At this stage, if you want to, you could actually fill these with some fillings. So you could, I've seen them do it with just butter, or you can use a really sweet syrup. You can fill them with bananas and honey. I've seen them with Nutella, onions, meat. There's really I don't think there's anything stopping you. So whatever you want to put in, you can. I'm just going to leave this one plain. I'm going to just pick it up and I'm going to just put it to the back of my bench and I'm going to just twirl it on top of itself and make this pretty little pastry mound, and then squish it down a little bit. If it looks like it's drying out, you can put a bit more oil on. We'll let that rest for about 10 minutes. And then when we roll it out again, that'll have that nice layered fluffy pastry. So, do you want to give it a go?
Yeah, let's give it a go.
Okay. Okay, so just to mix these ones up a little bit, what I think I might do is I'll put some butter on the top of the layer now and a little bit of cinnamon sugar, and that way when we spiral it and flatten it back out, it'll have some really lovely layers of buttery, sugary goodness that'll fry up beautifully. Dosing of cinnamon sugar.
Beautiful.
I think traditionally they'll do like honey and banana and stuff, but this is yummy.
You alright down there?
This is like Starbucks roti. So it's been about 15 minutes and this dough is looking pretty beautiful. What I'm going to do now is just basically flatten it back out. It won't have quite as much give as it did the first time around, but it'll come out into a nice kind of rounded parcel of pastry. Then we'll fry it up and see how it goes.
Beautiful.
Cool. So I'm pretty happy with that. So what we're going to do now is just going to heat up a fry pan. We're not going to cook it with any butter or oil in the pan, obviously, because it's full of both of those things. And we'll just cook a bit each side, and we should have beautiful, delicious roti.
Fantastic.
Okay, so we've got this piece of roti, and we've just heated up a pan. We're going to drop that in, and we're going to let it start frying up. Okay, so we finished off frying this beautiful, delicious roti. We've got 4 of these mixed, we've got some cinnamon and butter and some just plain. If you're doing them plain, I think traditionally they serve it up with some sort of like a curry or a dipping sauce that you would do it with. But honestly, you could probably just eat it plain. It is so delicious. We did.
Taste testing throughout cooking the other 4.
It's our responsibility. All right, let's see how... We haven't tried one of the cinnamon sugar ones yet. Let's see how that goes. Oh, look at that.
Fantastic.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yum. That is just delicious. Well done.